What's going on, guys? This is Jake at thatfitfriend.com, and today I'll be reviewing the Under Armour Project Rock BSR 5. So 3 things to like with this shoe is number 1, thank God they got rid of the booty style construction in this model. So this shoe I think fits a lot better overall. They got rid of that booty style construction that I think could be a little bit tight at times. They went back to the traditional tongue construction, which I'm a big fan of. Now it's not gusseted, and I'll talk about that and why it's annoying. But for the most part, this shoe I think fits a lot better in the sense of giving you a bit more room while giving you security with the upper volume due to this change. The second thing to like with this shoe is if you're somebody that likes a supportive midsole and a supportive gym shoe in general, this can be a really good option to go with. With this charged midsole here, you do get a nice level of support through the medial and lateral side, and you do have additional sidewalls up here on the forefoot. So if you're somebody that likes having, again, a bit more of a base to lift on and put stress into when doing multi-directional and cross-training workouts, this can be a great option to go with. The third thing to like with this shoe, I'm gonna give you a 2 for here, is number 1, it feels a little bit wider, and 2, they brought the price point down in the shoe, I believe. So this model right now is retailing at $90. That is down $10 from the consistent $100 that the BSR line has cost. That is a good thing for all of us because shoes only keep getting more expensive, so to see a shoe drop, that's pretty rare. But then also we do have a wider forefoot in this shoe. So if you found the BSR 3, 4, 2, etc. to feel a little bit snug in the forefoot, I think you'll actually feel better in this shoe. It feels a bit more spacious, and it seems like Under Armour is trying to move this last or the size of the shoe to being a little bit more wide, like some of the commit models that are out there now built for wide feet. All right, so 2 cons that I have with the BSR 5. Number 1, it is a chonky shoe. So again, like similar to the other Project Rock models, and this is why I talk about in the pros, it being a good model for folks who love supportive midsoles. If you don't love a ton of material between your foot and the floor, this is not going to be your best shoe. It is very thick. It takes a bit of time to break in. And even now, after mine's been broken in, like it still takes some time to work that midfoot. And so if you're big on having more ground feel, or if you want less of a stack height, look into models like the Tri-Base Rain for Under Armour. They're gonna give you a lot more ground feel and a lower stack height, which will be better for RDLs, deadlifts, power cleans, and other movements where you want a bit more ground feel under you. The second con that I have with the shoe is, look, I like that they got rid of the booty style construction, but Under Armour, why couldn't you just gusset the tongue a little bit? Because with this tongue, now you have to get it to lay flat when you're lacing them up. And so I have noticed that it can round in a little bit at times when you're putting them on, and sometimes when you're doing lateral movements, it starts to roll in. I find that very annoying. So you gotta make sure that you get that security right and lay that tongue flat when you're putting them on, which I guess isn't the biggest deal, but it is an extra step that could have totally been prevented had you just put a gusset in this tongue. Because it's so aggressive here with this top material, it pushes that tongue down, and I think that's what causes this little bit of overlap in this model. Overall though, I do feel like the BSR 5 is a step in a good direction for the generalist that wants a more budget-friendly shoe from Under Armour, but now let's talk about the performance of this model. All right, to break down the performance of the BSR 5, I'll discuss how they do for lifting, cross-training, short runs, and daily wear. In the context of lifting, the shoe does a pretty good job. If you're somebody that just wants a more generalist gym shoe for strength and hypertrophy workouts, this model will get the job done. It is dense enough with the midsole to support heavier loads, so if you are pulling over 400 pounds or squatting north of 300 pounds, this shoe should give you enough stability with this charged cushioning midsole, and then also you have a full rubber tread here with this Tri-Base tech. So if you're somebody who is regularly lifting on rubber gym floors, wooden platforms, or you're doing heavy machine work like leg presses, hack squats, etc., this is one of those shoes that should give you a nice grip and bite for those activities. Now I will say, this model with its thicker midsole does have a bit of toe spring. So when it comes to grounding the toes in certain movements, that is one area where I think this model does take a hit on stability, and that has been pretty stereotypical with most Project Rock models to date. That doesn't necessarily surprise me. But all that to say, if you're somebody that likes that supportive midsole and you want that medium density for strength and hypertrophy workouts, this model does a pretty good job. You also have a wider forefoot, which is awesome for toe splay. Now when it comes to cross training, the shoe also has done a good job. I can't fault it for its grip. The upper security has been pretty good so far, and the midsole isn't so blocky to where it feels overly uncomfortable for jumping and whatnot. If you're somebody who's regularly doing jump rope, sled pushes, pulls, you're doing any form of box jumps, or you're doing broad jumps and whatnot, this shoe's midsole should be accommodating enough for those asks. It doesn't feel too chunky for that, but do keep in mind it will take like a week or 2 to break in because it is a thicker midsole, but once you break it in, I think it will start to feel better for those needs. And then with the upper construction, I have been pretty impressed with it because for the most part, we just have a simple mesh upper with a synthetic and textile overlay over the forefoot. But I think with these sidewalls here with the midsole, it does give you a bit more of a base to drive into when you're doing multi-directional work. So for a general cross-training shoe, I think this model does a good job. And for $90, I feel like it's a pretty good pick for most folks who just do a little bit of jumping and cross-training athletic style stuff in their day-to-day workouts with some lifting included. Now, when it comes to short runs, the shoe I think should be comfortable enough for runs up to about 800 meters to a mile. That would be probably the extent on which I would feel comfortable pushing my running in the shoe. Because it's a little bit thick and doesn't have as much articulation that I prefer in a running shoe and as much bounce, I would prefer saying it's a little bit more soft. Now, if you do like a denser midsole and a bit more supportive midsole, you actually might like that. But for me, I find the shoe to be fine and comfortable for short interval runs, but anything longer than a mile, you may want to find something that's a bit more dialed for running or a little bit more plush and accommodating and responsive for that ask. When it comes to daily wear, the shoe is also pretty good. I think if you're somebody that likes a slightly higher drop, this model's drop is at 8 millimeters, and you like a little bit more midsole, this model will feel very comfortable for you. You also have a decently breathable upper, and the forefoot being wider, it makes this shoe a bit more comfortable for all day wear. Now that said, if I am rocking a shoe for all day wear, I like a flatter drop, and I also like a little bit less midsole. I like having a bit more ground feel. That's just my personal preference though, and if you have liked the other BSR models for daily wear, I think you're gonna really enjoy this shoe as well. All right, so for lifting, I would give the shoe an 8 out of 10. It does a pretty good job for $90. It's a very good generalist for strength and hypertrophy workouts. For cross training, I would give the shoe an 8 out of 10 as well. It's not necessarily my go-to pick for sprints or serious athletic workouts. I would rather go for a Rain 6 for that because I like more flexibility. But for the generalist, honestly, it's tough to fault the shoe. It does a pretty good job. For short runs, I would give the shoe a 7 out of 10. It's not the most comfortable when it comes to the thickness of the midsole. It takes a bit to break in, and it can feel a little bit clunky for that. And then for daily wear, I would also give this shoe a 7 out of 10. But again, that's because I like a lower drop and a lower stack height. But if you like a supportive midsole, I think you'll like this shoe, and it might actually be more of an 8, 8.5 out of 10 for you. All right, so when it comes to the price of the BSR 5, you can expect to pay $90. Again, that is a price decrease from the BSR 4, which cost $100. So if you could find these on sale and knock that price point even down further from Under Armour or Dick's Sporting Goods, etc., I think the shoe is definitely worth it for that money. All right, so now who should buy this shoe? Number one, if you're somebody that wants a budget-friendly gym shoe for strength, hypertrophy, and some cross-training workouts, this model can be a pretty good option. The second context where I think the shoe makes a lot of sense is if you're somebody that likes a more supportive midsole and you like a little bit more material to help give your foot some support, this model can feel awesome. And then number three, if you're a Project Rock fan and you thought the last models were a little bit too narrow and you didn't love the booty style construction, I would say give this shoe a try. The reworked upper construction and the reworked forefoot and last I think is going to make it way more comfortable for your asks. Now, who shouldn't buy this shoe? Number one, if you're somebody that likes a flatter shoe and less stack height, don't get the shoe. It's just way too thick. You're not going to love them. Trust me, I'll save you the money right now and save you the time. The second context is if you are somebody who wants a little bit more flexibility with your training shoes for cross training and for lifting purposes, and you want a bit more ground feel, you're going to want to probably pass on this shoe as well. All right, so when it comes to sizing and fit of this shoe, so I buy a size 10 in all of the shoes I review. I have an E to double E with foot, and I do that to keep it consistent when it comes to my sizing suggestions. So this is a size 10 model. It runs pretty true with its size, and its width feels pretty good for my needs even when wearing thicker socks. So all that to say, I think if you have a narrow to medium to slightly wider foot width, you should be safe going true to size in this model. If you currently wear Under Armour shoes or Project Rock shoes, go for the same size in this model. And if you wear Nike, Reebok, etc., and you're thinking about getting the shoe, I would say probably go for the same size as well. But if you have additional questions on the sizing of the shoe, drop a comment down below. And I will say there could be one other issue with sizing for some folks is that this doesn't have a removable insole. So if you have a very high instep or thick foot, that might be something to consider, but I do think you'll have enough upper volume. But again, just drop a comment down below and I can help you navigate that accordingly. All right, so for my size 10 Project Rock BSR 5 here, we have a weight of 11.30 ounces. The heel to toe drop of the shoe sits at 8 millimeters, and this model once again does not have a removable insole, which again can be problematic for thicker feet. Overall though, I do think the upper volume should be okay, but again, hit me in the comments below if you have additional concerns or questions. All right, so now let's break down the construction of the Project Rock BSR 5. So up here on the forefoot, we have a synthetic overlay that covers the entirety of this toe box. It's not super aggressive, so it does give you a little bit of play there. And then you also have this mesh mesh that runs throughout the forefoot into the midfoot. Back here on the heel, you have a suede overlay that wraps around, and then you also have a structured boot with additional padding and an external heel tab here. You have some Project Rock BSR branding on the lateral and medial side and the heel of the shoe. And then looking at the tongue, you have again that more traditional tongue construction. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 core eyelets that go up with a padded mesh tongue. There is no gusset to this tongue, so again, it can fold at times, which is something I called out in my cons. When looking at the midsole, you have that charged cushioning that runs throughout. You have some overlays here on the lateral and medial side of the forefoot for additional support. And then looking at the outsole, you have a full rubber tread with some brakes up here in the forefoot for flexibility, and you also have that tri-base tech here in the midfoot, which has been consistent with every Under Armour Project Rock model to date. Again, this model does not have a removable insole, so definitely keep that in mind for my thicker feet out there. But if you have additional questions on the construction of this shoe, drop a comment down below. All right, so now, would I buy this shoe again? Not necessarily, and it's not because this shoe is not a strong performer. However, I think for the price point, this shoe does a good job, and I can really appreciate it for what it is, and it does feel like a leveled up shoe compared to the 4, despite having a decreased price. It's just not my cup of tea with its overall thickness and its bulk. But I think for most folks who are generalists, love Project Rock shoes, love a bit more supportive training shoes, this model is good, and I would vouch for it in that lens. But if you have additional questions on the BSR 5, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one.